Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to look at why, despite the media trying to suggest that the tens of miles long queues of lorries were down to several factors seemingly of equal importance, and without mentioning Brexit, the 53-hour wait at the main lorry park in Kent only started to clear when the government got their Brexit customs control system back up and working again this Monday. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. Another little thing, as discussed last night, I'll be doing a stream on YouTube this Saturday for the first time at 7 p.m. UK time for an hour. Be a test run to get ready for something else. Details in the video that came out last night. And also, finally, if you hear the odd cry, no, I haven't got Boris Johnson locked up in my dungeon. It is the feral child next door. Unfortunately, we're just a few days away from the full moon and she's powering up. But let's hope the soundproofing works. So, let's look again at the aggravating factors in the massive build-up of lorries unable to get across our new hard Brexit border. P&O ferries, despite the fact that the gridlock on the M20 in Kent only got serious 2 weeks after P&O sacks their British fleet. Adverse weather conditions, despite this only being the odd day, not the 10 days worth of tailbacks on the M20. Easter getaways were also blamed. Okay, I'll come to that. But even though we haven't yet reached peak time for those, and actually, as we get into peak time for that, the problem is subsiding. The media also blamed IT issues. Now, here there is a rather better fit. But what were the IT issues? The media didn't seem to say much about that. Well, as I've spoken about recently, the government's GVMS system went belly up a couple of weeks ago. This is the Goods Vehicle Movement Service. It's the IT system that the government brought online at the start of January to manage their Brexit customs controls, the ones they didn't bother to put in place last year because it'd cause a hell of a lot of hassle. It is a system that exists to manage our hard Brexit. We don't need it without Brexit. This was not a system that we needed anyway. Wasn't required. So any problems arising from this system, whether it is working or not, are a problem of Brexit, and the media should be reporting it as such. And there have been problems from the start. But a couple of weeks ago, the whole system crashed. The government didn't know what the issue was, so hauliers had to manage without it. The whole thing was taken offline. They had to use manual methods. Before you knew it, there were not only tailbacks on the main road leading to Dover and Folkestone in Kent, but we were expecting those to be ramping up anyway, but wait times of in excess of 48 hours at the Ashford Lorry Park. Because remember that the queues on the motorway don't tell the full story. The way the government makes sure that this road is not in permanent gridlock, and very embarrassing, media can't ignore it, due to Brexit, is by making lorries wait elsewhere. Until their paperwork's in order, a lorry driver wouldn't even want to set off from their collection point anyway. So a lot of waiting is done in warehouses, distribution centres. That won't be noticed, and it won't be documented. Then they make their way to Kent. If they want to cross via either a ferry at Dover or the Channel Tunnel at Folkestone, but before they can head there, they need to be cleared. Until that happens, they're waiting around in a lorry park, Ashford being a big one. Then when everything's sorted, they head off down the M20 to Dover generally. So any delays on this road are after already waiting around at the warehouse for some undocumented period of time, and more waiting around at the lorry park, for which we can see average times. But the delays visible to the public are those on that final stretch on the M20, because that's publicly available. We've got cameras. We can just log onto a website and have a look at them. And the media will report on it if it's really bad and they can't find any cats stuck up trees. So GVMS goes down. We end up with the median time spent by trucks at Ashford Lorry Park getting to 53 hours over a period of many days. Median time. So some lorries will be there much longer. Then, this Monday, the problems with the system were sorted and it went back up. Actually, they were sorted at the end of last week and the government chose to leave it off over the weekend. They had some reason for that. Maybe it was a good one. I don't know. Now the median time at Ashford is, at the time of recording this anyway, is 9 hours. Now, that's still not good. Because remember, none of that weight was required before Brexit. We didn't need the lorry park. We didn't need that weight. None of it. That's 9 extra hours anyway. But you know what? It's still a lot better than 53 hours. And that wait time started dropping on Monday, the same day the GVMS system went up. So what we have is a situation where the traffic heading to Dover got really bad as the GVMS system went down, stayed bad for that entire period of about a week and a half or a bit over, then eased considerably when the GVMS system went back up. It's not really a hard pattern to follow, is it? So does that mean that the problems have been sorted now? Well, no. If we only ever had problems when GVMS went down, Brexit wouldn't actually be half as bad. It wouldn't be something to complain about on a daily basis. Because although our Brexit control system going down caused a huge increase in wait times, that's not the only Brexit factor here. Checks still have to take place. They didn't used to. So not only was whatever the wait time is in Ashford Lorry Park, it didn't used to exist. The wait time in Dover now, which even on a good day is a few hours, that didn't used to happen either. Occasionally you'd get the odd very busy day, but that was not the norm. Now it is. You know, the paperwork required before Brexit was minimal. The time taken to get through the border was often like a minute. Now it's several hours at Dover on a good day. Hour or so at Folkestone. But most freight passes through Dover. So you still see large queues of lorries on the M20 right now. I had a look at the current state, you know, at the time of recording this, I went onto the cameras and I had a look and there's still some queues there. And what we see are queues at some of those junctions still with cones still deployed. In fact, if all you'd done was look at the M20 cameras and you didn't keep an eye on the lorry park waiting times, you might even wonder if much had improved at all. But yes, lorries now have about a median of 35 hours less waiting time at least. This is good for them, which is definitely good for us, because reports tell of lorry drivers on the M20 not being allowed out of their cabs at all for any reason. People coming up with torches and get back in your cabs. They have to piss and crap in their cabs. Most are not equipped for this. So lengthy delays is making a lot of EU-based lorry drivers consider whether they really want to be doing any runs in Britain in the future. Bear in mind, we have a chronic shortage of drivers in Britain. I mean chronic. It's not just the delays at the border strangling our trade flow. It's the lack of drivers. We are reliant on foreign labour in this sector just like many others. And when that foreign labour decides to remain in the single market, you know, because there's plenty of work there and I don't have to crap in my cab, we are going to suffer as we did last year, and it may be rather more permanent. But the government might not mind this. After all, even if we had enough lorry drivers, we're still limited as to how many trucks we can get through the border a day anyway. So we are going to have to reduce the level of trade down to what we can cope with. That level of trade is much lower now. That limits the amount of trade we can have if you slow down the traffic flow through the ports. Because let's go back to that issue of people setting off for Easter getaways, because that's also a factor. But that's very specific. As if this level of traffic is peak time for the whole year. Oh yeah, it's always massively busy at Easter, but don't worry, it tails off then. No. It's just the first surge of demand on ports of a typical year. The demand on those ports is expected to ramp up over the year. In January, it's dead. Post-Christmas, trade, with or without Brexit, is at an annual low. That we had to deploy traffic management systems in January for over half the month, in the quietest time of the year, should have been a foretelling of woe to come. All we are seeing now, GVMS problems aside, is that even with everything working, if you increase the number of vehicles wanting to pass through those ports when you cannot even cope with the lowest demand of the whole year, you're going to be in for a tough time. Last year, we largely got away with it because there were far fewer cars. Trade tried to ramp up, but far fewer tourist cars, that sort of thing. So you just use some of the extra lanes for lorries. But is that really all there is to it? So what about the other two factors that were cited? Well, the adverse weather conditions, yeah, of course, you know, if it's a bit choppy, but that was for a few days. There's no issues at the moment as far as I can see reported. The P&O ferries situation is still ongoing. But ferries have been making the Channel crossing half empty at times. Now, if a lack of ferries was a significant factor right now, why are they only sailing half full? Now, the issues are down to delays. They're sailing half full because it's taken too long to load them up with vehicles. Because that's what the hold-up is. There are only so many lanes leading into Dover. People called for special lanes for lorries with fresh food last week. Problem is, and it sounds sensible, doesn't it? It sounds sensible, yeah. Because the problem is literally days of delays. I mean, think about it. Lorry driver gets into Kent, 53 hours, median time, might be longer, 53 hours in the lorry park there. Then you've got to drive down to Dover. Who knows how long you're delayed on the road, because the tailbacks were like tens of miles sometimes. Then you get to Dover itself. There was about 8 or 9 hours of delays at the port itself as well. You add all this up, you're basically in Kent for 3 days. You're in Kent for 3 days. You know, so food exports were spoiling, fresh food spoiling. Another problem of Brexit that was predicted long ago. So give them a special lane to fast track them through. Makes sense. But it can't work. You can give them a special lane on the M20 if you want to bugger things up even more. Okay. But then they get to Dover. They're still stuck behind the lorries waiting for clearance because that's where the hold-up is. It's not on the M20 really. It's just backing up onto the M20. The hold-up is at Dover. We are an island. We can't just build more roads across the border. We're surrounded by the big blue wobbly wet stuff. Dover is as it is. There isn't scope for expansion in this way. We have what we have. It is no coincidence that the UK was one of the countries pushing the idea of the single market the hardest. It was massively in our favour to have hassle-free movement across our borders with neighbouring countries. So even when it becomes harder to blame the ferries, which were also an indirect consequence of Brexit anyway, and GVMS is up and running, as it is, we're still going to see queues on the M20 and long delays getting through Dover, especially because expected traffic will increase. It will increase this summer as you normally get an increase in demand for freight, as well as holidaymakers trying to get off the island. Some crazy buggers even trying to get on the island from the other direction. Because yes, Easter getaways is a thing. Do you know what else is a thing? The summer getaways, and that's a bigger thing. After summer, that demand for freight will keep rising. We may have fewer holidaymakers and tourists, but the freight will ramp up, and it ramps up a lot as businesses get ready for Christmas. It accelerates. It doesn't get any easier for major ports from this point onwards. This is just the start of getting busy. They only eases off next January when trade drops off a cliff after Christmas again. Only we're probably going to have the biometric checks in place by then. That will be a new fun episode in Brexit Realities. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.